The auditorium at Georgetown University buzzed with anticipation. Rows of students filled the hall, some adjusting their seats, others scrolling through their phones, waiting for the event to begin. Outside, news vans lined the streets, antennas raised, cameras ready. This wasn't just another student Q&A. This was something different. Barron Trump, yes, that Barron Trump, was set to speak. It wasn't a campaign rally, and it wasn't a press conference. It was billed as a town hall dialogue between a rising political figure and the next generation, and for once, it actually felt genuine. No teleprompters, no scripted applause, just one podium, one microphone, and an open invitation. Ask me anything. But of course, when someone with the Trump name walks into a room, tension follows, and that night it walked in quietly. Right behind him, Barron entered through a side door, not flanked by security, not announced with fanfare. Just a nod to the moderator, a steady walk to the center stage, and a brief moment of silence before the applause began. Some clapped earnestly, others hesitated. A few didn't clap at all. And Barron noticed. He wasn't naive. He knew the crowd was mixed. Supporters, skeptics, protesters waiting for a viral moment. But he also knew why he came, to talk, not to retreat. As he adjusted the mic, the room dimmed just slightly, the spotlight falling on him alone. It was the kind of silence that could crack open or explode, depending on what came next. If you're already hooked, go ahead and smash that like button, drop a comment below with your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that dive into the moments that shape public perception. Because what happened next, no one in that room was ready for it. The first few questions were thoughtful, challenging, yes, but fair. A political science major asked about criminal justice reform. Another student brought up concerns over mental health policies. Barron answered each with a measured tone, a slight nod, and a pause that signaled he was actually listening, not just waiting to speak. The room surprisingly felt balanced, until it didn't. It started with a voice from the far left side of the auditorium. Row 3, aisle seat. A young woman stood, holding a tablet and a small lapel mic clipped to her collar. She introduced herself not as a student, but as an independent campus journalist. Her name was Claire Monroe. Her voice was steady, but her posture radiated something else, something sharper. Mr. Trump, she began, you speak about transparency and inclusion, but how do you reconcile those ideals with your upbringing, your inherited privilege, your name, your platform? Isn't your very presence here an embodiment of systemic inequality? The question didn't land like the others. It hit harder, louder, sharper. Gasps rippled through the auditorium, not because it was off limits, but because everyone could tell this wasn't curiosity. This was confrontation. Barron didn't flinch. He looked directly at Claire and responded evenly, everyone has a background. I didn't choose mine. What matters is what I do with it. I came here to have an open conversation with people who are willing to engage respectfully, not to apologize for being born. A few students nodded. Some clapped. Claire didn't. She stepped closer to the standing mic. So, you won't take accountability for your privilege? Barron blinked slowly. That's not what I said. Claire spoke again, without waiting for the mic. Sounds like it is, the moderator gently interjected. Let's allow other students to speak, please. But Claire didn't yield. She raised her voice slightly, angling her body just enough for the cameras positioned in the back of the auditorium to catch her profile. She was no longer addressing Barron. She was performing for the live stream, for TikTok, for the headline she hoped would follow. Why is it, she demanded, that people like you always get the mic, the stage, the last word? When will you step aside and let marginalized voices be heard? Barron didn't look angry. He looked tired. Tired in a way only someone who's been turned into a symbol rather than a person can understand. I'm here because I want to listen, he said, his voice calm but firmer now. But listening requires dialogue, not monologue. Claire opened her mouth again, but this time the moderator stepped in more assertively. Ms. Anelo, we appreciate your question. We need to move on. A few students clapped again, but the applause was no longer unanimous. The room had split, and Claire knew it. She took a step back but didn't sit down. Instead, she turned to her phone, lifted it slightly and, still standing, began filming herself. Barron watched, his jaw tightening. He had two options: ignore it and let her hijack the moment, or meet it head on. He chose the third option. "Claire," he said, turning toward her fully, "if you'd like, you're welcome to come up here and take the mic. You say I always get the last word. Let's even the playing field." The room stilled. Even the rustling stopped. Claire froze. Barron gestured again. "Come on, you said I should step aside, so here's your chance." It wasn't sarcasm. It wasn't spite. It was something more dangerous: sincerity. Claire hesitated. For a moment it looked like she might accept, but then she shook her head and said, "I'm not here for theater." Barron smiled. "That's good, because I'm not here for spectacle." There was a beat of silence. Then the auditorium erupted, not in laughter, but in realization. The power dynamic had flipped. Claire finally sat down, arms crossed, visibly fuming. She had counted on a reaction, on anger, on being silenced. What she didn't count on was being invited to speak and choosing not to. And now everyone saw it. If you're watching and you've made it this far, hit that like button if you respect civil dialogue, and drop a comment below. Was Claire speaking truth or just chasing attention? And don't forget to subscribe, because this story is only getting started. Back in the auditorium, the energy had shifted. Other students resumed questions, thoughtful ones, tough ones. But the tension didn't fully leave the room, not yet. It clung to the back of people's throats, to their narrowed eyes and sharpened ears. Claire hadn't left. She was still there, still filming, still waiting. Barron felt it too, and for the first time since stepping onto that stage, he realized this wasn't about the students anymore. It was about the stage itself, about who gets to own the moment, about who the audience believes and why. He exhaled, gripping the podium with one hand, and he knew the real question wasn't going to come from the mic. It was going to come after. The room wasn't the same anymore. Claire Monroe had returned to her seat, but she hadn't backed down. Her phone was still raised subtly in her lap, screen glowing faintly as it recorded every breath, every shift, every word from Barron Trump. She wasn't filming to learn. She was filming to trap, and Barron knew it. The next few questions from the audience trickled in, but the rhythm was gone. The trust in the room, whatever fragile strand had held the event together, was fraying. A young man stood up near the back, asking about housing affordability. Barron answered, but the words didn't land. Not because the answer was weak, but because the focus had shifted. Every eye darted between Barron and Claire. And that's when it happened. Claire stood again, this time without raising her hand. Without waiting for the mic, she just stood, projecting her voice across the rows. "Mr. Trump, since you like open dialogue so much, why don't you address the fact that you just embarrassed a student in front of her peers? That you invited someone to speak not out of respect, but to humiliate them?" Gasps. Again. The moderator tried to interject, but Barron lifted a hand gently. It was a small gesture, but it said everything. "Let me handle this." He didn't move from the podium. He didn't raise his voice. He just stood there, center stage, spotlit, still, focused, and then he spoke. "No one gets embarrassed by being offered a microphone," he said calmly. "What's embarrassing is demanding a voice, then refusing to speak when given the chance." A pause. "But let's be clear," he continued, "this isn't about embarrassment. This is about control, about hijacking a moment, about turning a campus forum into a viral clip." Claire scoffed, loud enough to be heard, but Barron didn't flinch. In fact, he stepped forward, gripping the sides of the podium just slightly, and dropped his tone. "You say I embarrassed you? You came here ready to pick a fight. You brought a mic, a camera, a script. You didn't come to talk. You came to win a moment, and that's okay. That's the game now, right? But don't pretend this was something else." The crowd shifted, audible murmurs. Someone in the middle row muttered, "Damn." Claire opened her mouth, but Barron raised his hand again. This time not to silence, but to finish. "I'm not here to win a moment," he said. "I'm here to have a real one. And you're still welcome to be part of that, but not like this." And then he let the silence breathe. The silence. It wasn't dead space. It was deliberate. It wrapped around the room, holding everyone in place, making them lean in. He had reclaimed the moment without yelling, without walking out, without having anyone removed. That was the turning point. If you're watching this right now and you felt that shift, let us know in the comments. Have you ever seen someone win by not walking away? And if you're not already part of this channel, hit subscribe. Because moments like this is why we're here. Back in the auditorium, Claire sat down, not slamming the chair, not storming out, just folding, quiet, still filming, yes, but not speaking, and that silence from her said more than any outburst ever could. The students began to settle again. A girl in a jean jacket stood and asked about climate policy. The spell was broken, the room moved on, but something lingered. Not tension, respect. Even the skeptical students, those who had come just to challenge, now looked at Barron with a different expression. Not admiration necessarily, but recognition. He hadn't taken the bait, he hadn't flared or fled. He had held the line, held the room, and held himself. Behind the scenes, the live stream chat exploded. He didn't cancel her. He gave her the stage, and she choked. Bro didn't clap back. He stood back. Power move. This man just gave a masterclass in restraint. Barron adjusted the mic one last time, glancing briefly toward Claire, not with contempt, but with something that almost looked like understanding. Because he knew what she was chasing. He used to chase it, because he knew what she was chasing. He used to chase the attention, the story, the moment that makes you matter, even if it's for the wrong reasons. But he also knew something else. There's power in staying still, power in not reacting when you're baited, power in not walking away when you're cornered, power in not raising your voice just because someone else is shouting. That night, Barron didn't win a debate. He didn't defeat an enemy. He did something rarer. He earned back the room. It didn't take long. By the time Barron Trump stepped off stage and shook hands with the event moderator, the clip was already out there, spliced, trimmed, and framed, exactly how Claire Monroe had hoped. A 17-second vertical video, low-res, cropped tightly, captioned in bold, flashing letters, "Trump shuts down student for asking about privilege." And just like that, the truth became a thumbnail. It hit Twitter first, then TikTok, then Instagram. The hashtags followed. Silence the students, campus control, privilege on display. Claire didn't post it herself, but she didn't need to. Several accounts got there first, tagging her, praising her courage, calling her the voice of her generation. Meanwhile, Barron sat backstage in a small conference room, sipping water that had long gone lukewarm. His comms team was already huddled around a laptop, scrolling furiously. "You're trending," one aide said without looking up. Barron raised an eyebrow. "Good trending or bad trending?" A pause. "Viral trending." Another aide turned the screen toward him. The video played. Claire's voice sounded louder in the clip than it had in the room. Her words framed like they were revolutionary, while his responses were cut, context stripped. To anyone watching, it looked like a public takedown. Barron didn't say a word. He watched it again, this time focusing not on the words but the tone, the angle, the timing. He saw exactly what it was, manufactured outrage with perfect optics. "She clipped it," his aide muttered. "It doesn't even show the part where you offered her the mic, or how she refused to speak." "Of course not," Barron said flatly. "That part doesn't trend." The first headlines hit within the hour. Barron Trump humiliates student at Georgetown, event, future of politics or echoes of the past. Student calls out privilege, gets shut down. No nuance. No context, just clickbait. But Barron didn't panic. He leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes for a moment, then said, "Upload the full video, all of it, raw, no cuts. Post it before midnight." The team looked at each other. One spoke, carefully. "Won't that just draw more attention?" Barron opened his eyes. "Exactly." The full video went live at 11:23 p.m. Title: "Watch the moment, for yourself. The full exchange at Georgetown." Caption: "No edits, no sound bites, just reality. You decide." It wasn't flashy. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't bait. It was calm, controlled, clear. And that's what made it deadly. The internet didn't know what to do with it. At first it was quiet. People who had already chosen a side didn't bother watching it. But then, something shifted. A popular commentary YouTuber posted a reaction. "Wait! He offered her the mic, and she refused? Yo, I think we all got played." Then came a student from the event itself, one of Claire's own classmates, who posted a short video saying, "I was in the room. This ain't what happened." Barron kept his cool. Claire came to pick a fight. That's the truth. It was raw, filmed in a dorm room with bad lighting, but it cut through the noise. Suddenly, the full video started climbing. Fast. The comments changed tone. Not a fan of Trump, but he handled that with class. I don't agree with him, but credit where it's due. Claire fumbled the moment, period. Even some journalists began issuing clarifications online. One tweet read, "After reviewing the full footage, it's clear the exchange at Georgetown was more nuanced than initially reported." More nuanced. That was code for "we messed up" without ever saying so. Claire responded, "Of course." She posted a thread, "Yes, I refused the mic, because I didn't come to perform. I came to speak truth, and when truth makes people uncomfortable, they twist it." Barron saw it. He didn't reply. He didn't need to. Because the court of public opinion had started turning, and it was turning fast. Back at Georgetown, professors discussed the event in class. Media professors analyzed it as a case study in narrative warfare. One poli-sci professor said, "This was the first time I saw a student try to go viral live and get outplayed by silence." Even on social media, where outrage usually reigns, people were asking a different question. What if restraint is the new power move? If you're watching right now and you've ever seen the truth get buried under spin, this is your moment. Hit that like button if you believe full context matters. And if you're new here, subscribe. Because in a world built on narratives, we're telling the whole story. The battle wasn't over. But for once, the reverse happened. The viral clip didn't bury the truth. The truth drowned the clip. Claire still had her followers, still had defenders, but now, so did Barron, and not just from one side of the aisle. Moderate students, independent thinkers, even people who disagreed with his politics found themselves asking, why did he come out looking stronger, even when they tried to make him look weak? The answer was simple. He stood his ground and let the story tell itself. By the end of the week, the headlines had faded, but the conversation hadn't. The full video continued circulating, in classrooms, on forums, around dinner tables, not because it was dramatic, but because it was honest. And that made it rare. Barron never addressed the clip again. No press release, no defensive post, no carefully worded statement from a PR team. He didn't need to, because sometimes silence isn't avoidance. Sometimes it's the loudest answer of all. What happened at Georgetown wasn't just a moment of political theater. It wasn't even about policy. Not really. It was about something deeper, something more personal. It was about how we treat people we disagree with, about whether we're still capable of listening without trying to destroy, about whether disagreement still has a place in public life without becoming warfare. Barron didn't win because he was clever. He didn't win because he had a better argument. He won because he chose restraint over reaction, composure over chaos. And that choice, simple as it seems, is one of the hardest things to do in a world trained to shout louder. The lesson? In a time where the loudest voice usually gets the spotlight, the strongest one might just be the voice that chooses not to shout. So if you believe in civility over conflict, in truth over theater, if you believe we need more spaces for real dialogue, not viral warfare, then let this moment remind us. This was never just about politics. It was about the kind of people we're becoming. If that resonated with you, let us know in the comments below, and if you haven't already, like, share, and subscribe for more stories that remind us why character still matters. Because sometimes, standing still is how you move the world.